My wife cheated on me, so I destroyed her from the inside out. I've always been a logical guy. Numbers make sense, patterns make sense. People, not so much. That's why I became a quantitative analyst. My world is data, statistic, and predictable outcomes. What I didn't expect, that my wife of 7 years would be dumb enough to think she could cheat on me and get away with it. But she did. I found out through an anonymous message. Someone sent me screenshots of texts, pictures, hotel bookings, and timestamps proving that my wife Emily was having an affair with her coworker. And not just a one-time mistake. She had been doing this for over a year. I could have confronted her. I could have raged, yelled, kicked her out, and filed for divorce. But that would have been too easy for her. Instead, I decided to do what I do best, play the long game and destroy her from the inside out. I knew I couldn't rush this. The moment she suspected I knew, she'd go into damage control mode. So I did the opposite. I acted completely normal. I met with a divorce attorney and started the legal process behind her back. I moved money into a separate account and removed her as a beneficiary. I began secretly packing my valuables and important documents. Then she told me she had a 2-week business trip coming up. Perfect. The moment she left, I put my real plan into motion. Emily has always been self-conscious about her weight, her looks, and how people perceive her. She puts hours into her appearance, spending a fortune on clothes, obsessing over sizes, angles, and how she looks in photos. So I decided to destroy that first. While she was gone, I took every piece of clothing she owned, work outfits, casual wear, gym clothes, even brand new outfits she hadn't worn yet, and had them altered 2 sizes smaller. Cost me around $2,000, but my satisfaction would be priceless. I vowed to myself that every time we went out, I would make sure to take photos of her. But before posting them on social media, I would slightly widen her face, arms, and waist. I started that before she even came back by posting an edited photo of her claiming how much I missed her. Not enough to be obvious, but just enough to make her question herself. The last thing to ruin her mentally was weakening her favorite chair. Emily had a favorite chair she sat in every morning for coffee. So I loosened the screws just enough, not enough to make it fall immediately, but just enough so that after a few days and a few more slight screw turns, it would collapse under her weight. When Emily came home, she was in for a surprise. She started getting ready for work the next morning, and nothing fit. She panicked. I walked into the bedroom, acting confused. What's wrong? She looked confused as she held up her designer dress, struggling to pull it over her hips. I think I gained weight on the trip. Oh? I tilted my head, pretending to inspect her. Yeah, you do look a little fuller. Maybe it's just bloating? She froze. Later that day when she got back home, she tried on another outfit. Same problem. By the end of the week, she was breaking down in frustration, standing in front of the mirror, pinching her stomach. Then I started giving her helpful suggestions. Every now and then, I'd casually drop little comments like, "Hey babe, I saw this article on portion control. Thought it might help. Have you been getting enough sleep? You look kinda puffy." She started getting defensive, snapping at me for no reason. Perfect. The cracks were forming. She'd try on an outfit and complain about it being tight, and I'd act surprised. "That's weird. Didn't you just buy that?" Or I'd say, "Maybe the washing machine shrunk them?" Knowing damn well it was her brain that was shrinking under stress. I knew it was time for the chair to go. One morning, Emily sat in her favorite chair, and it gave out beneath her. She screamed as she fell straight through it, landing on her ass. Her face turned red, eyes wide with pure horror. I ran over, hiding my smirk. "Oh my God, babe, are you okay? I mean, maybe it's just old." She looked at me, humiliated, questioning everything, and I just let it sink in. By this point, Emily was on edge, her confidence shattered, her self-image in ruins. She stopped going out as much, obsessed over her weight, and started Googling diets and workouts. Then, I dropped the final bomb. I waited for the perfect night, then sent her an anonymous email, the same way I had received mine. The email contained screenshots of her own affair messages, hotel receipts, a single line, "I'm going to tell him." I sat on the couch, phone in hand, and watched her entire world crumble in real time. Her face strained of all color as she read it. I could see her trying to keep her breathing steady, her hands trembling as she held her phone. She looked at me, her lips slightly parted, then quickly looked away, trying to compose herself. But I could see it. She was panicking. She was terrified. And the best part? I wasn't done yet. I sat there watching Emily's hands shake as she reread the email over and over again. She tried to keep it together, but I could see her brain working overtime. Her eyes darted toward me for a split second, then back to her phone. She knew. She knew I was the one who sent it. But she also knew she couldn't accuse me outright, because that would mean admitting what she had done. So instead, she did what all liars do when they're cornered. She tried to control the damage. Emily stood up quickly, pacing the room like she was trying to figure out an escape route. Then she grabbed her phone and rushed into the bathroom. I just smiled. A minute later, I heard her whispering frantically. I already knew who she was calling, her coworker, the other man. And I knew exactly what she was saying. Someone knows. I think it's him. What do I do? But what she didn't know was that I had already spoken to his wife. Days before sending that email, I had done a little reconnaissance. Emily's lover, Mr. Corporate Douchebag, had a wife of his own. So, I found her on social media. A few polite messages later, I sent her everything. The texts, the emails, the receipts, all of it. She was furious. And, apparently, her husband was even more scared of losing his cushy married life than Emily was. Because when Emily called him that night, expecting him to reassure her, he threw her straight under the bus. I didn't even have to listen to the conversation to know how it went. I could tell from the way she stormed out of the bathroom, pale and furious, gripping her phone like she wanted to crush it. He must have told her something like, "I don't know who you pissed off, but I'm not going down with you." Emily was alone in this mess. She knew it, and I knew it. For the next 2 days, Emily barely spoke to me. She didn't eat much. She didn't sleep. She just sat there in her uncomfortable tight clothes, obsessing over her phone, waiting for the bomb to drop. Every time she got a notification, she flinched. Every time I glanced at her, she avoided my eyes. When I would ask her what was wrong, and if she wanted to talk, she would just look at me cautiously, trying to decide if I knew something or not, and would just say, "Nothing is wrong," and that she was fine. She still couldn't take the chance and ask me about the message on the chance that I didn't send it. And then the final part of my plan and her worst nightmare came true. One morning, she woke up to dozens of messages. Her phone was blowing up. I laid there pretending to be asleep and watched as she unlocked it, her face twisting in horror. Because now, the entire office knew. Her affair was no longer a secret. Her lover's wife had exposed them both, sending HR, co-workers, and even some of their clients proof. Emily let out a shaky breath, hands covering her mouth. I heard her mumble to herself, I can fix this." I sleepily sat up and asked, "Fix what, babe?" She swallowed hard, trying not to panic, and said nothing, and jumped out of bed and ran to the bathroom. She was lying to herself because there was nothing left to fix. That morning, Emily left for work looking petrified. Her shoulders were tense, her movements stiff, and I could see the fear in her eyes. Like she was walking into a battlefield she wasn't prepared for. She had no idea that I still had one last move left to play. I took the day off, not because I needed rest, but because I wanted to make sure the last bit of my revenge was executed perfectly. 2 hours after she arrived at work, I got the message, "It's done." Shortly after Emily's name lit up my phone screen, she called, then texted, then called again, over and over. I just sat there, watching the notifications roll in. Desperate, panicked messages like, "Please call me. I need to explain. You don't understand what's happening." Oh, but I did. I knew exactly what was happening. Her entire world was crumbling, and I figured I'd let her marinate in it for a while. That evening, I came home earlier than usual. Emily was sitting on the couch, motionless, staring at the wall like she wasn't really there. On the table in front of her, the divorce papers I had her served with at work, neatly stacked beside a box of items from her desk, the final reminder that she had lost everything. Her career, her reputation, her marriage, and now her future. I set my keys down and walked past her toward the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water like it was just another day. I could feel her eyes burning into me, her breath uneven, her hands clenched into fists. I let the silence drag out, let her stew in it. Finally, she cracked. "Please," she choked out. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I turned, raising an eyebrow. "Please what?" Her hands gripped her lap so tightly I thought she might dig her nails into her skin. "Just talk to me. Let's talk about this. We can fix it. I made a mistake, but stop." My voice was calm, flat, empty. Emily flinched like I had slapped her. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I was just lost. It didn't mean anything. Please don't throw away everything we built together." I let out a cold, humorless chuckle. "Everything we built?" I repeated, stepping closer. "No, Emily, you threw it away. The moment you crawled into his bed, you burned it all to the ground." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "But I love you," she sobbed. "I love you more than anything." I leaned down, looking her dead in the eyes. "No, Emily." My voice was steady, unshaken. "You don't love me. You loved the comfort, the security. You loved knowing I'd always be there while you did whatever the hell you wanted." She reached for me, grabbing my wrist, her grip tight with desperation. "Please," she begged. "Please, I will do anything." I will fix this. Just tell me what I have to do. I yanked my hand away, stepping back like she was something rotten. You can't fix this, Emily. You don't get to cheat, lie, and manipulate for over a year, and then suddenly decide I'm worth fighting for now that you have nothing. Her face twisted in pure agony, her chest heaving with sobs. I can't lose you, she screamed, dropping to her knees, clutching at my leg like her life depended on it. I shook her off like she was nothing. You already did. Without another word, I grabbed the signed divorce papers, slipped them into my briefcase, and walked to the door. As I turned the handle, one last sob racked her body. I don't want to be alone. I paused. Then I looked back, meeting her shattered, broken gaze, and said, You should have thought about that before you spread your legs for him. Then I walked out, never looking back. A few days after I left, I got a call from one of her friends. Emily had a complete mental breakdown. She had to be hospitalized after a severe panic attack, and apparently she's been placed under psychological observation because she's been unstable ever since. I guess this is the point where I am supposed to feel bad? I don't. Actions have consequences, and for the first time in her life, she has to face them alone. Am I the asshole for disassembling her life brick by brick?